You should not forget the point that development and environment are two closely related factors. People are not talking about competition today. People are not talking about the ability factors, but they're talking about sustainability. Each internal will be valued for 30 marks, and the maximum mark, that is the final marks, will be awarded on the average of the three internals. Good morning and welcome to the Day Zero introduction session for the subject Sustainable Development in second semester BCom. Now, what is the agenda for today? We're going to go through the requisite, that is what is needed for this program. We're going to talk about the learning outcome, no doubt about it. We're going to talk about the various units that have been prescribed, going with the internals and with the exam pattern. So this is going to be an interesting journey, trying to understand what the program is all about, what the subject is all about, and how you are going to make the best use of it. So going forward, what are the prerequisites for this particular subject? I always say the prerequisite for this subject is the interest. The interest to learn about economics and development. Why? Because that is the need of the hour, and that is what is going to lead the nation forward. So I would always say that take this as a big step. You would definitely learn more about your country, more about the nature, and how we are going to take forward the sustainable development talks. Now, the next thing, what is the learning outcome that we are going to get from studying this subject? The first thing which I would always say that understand the basic concept of sustainable development, which is becoming very, very essential for all of us, knowing more about the environment, the economic problems, the social problems, now knowing the history of sustainable development idea, and where we're going to talk about the conflicts that are arising within our nation. Also, we will be able to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, and not to forget the goals and achievements. Now, though this subject might look something very, very closely related to environment, it's more about nature and other factors, but you should not forget the point that development and environment are two closely related factors. So the entire course is focused upon the factor that development cannot be compromised on the context of environment. So that's how we're going to take it forward today. Followed by, let's go through the units. Unit 1, Chapter 1. What do we have it? We have the meaning, characteristics of environment, goods and services, where we're going to talk about the relationship between environment and development. Then we're going to talk about the Kuznets curve, the meaning and evidence, and of course, the sustainable development meaning and indicators. Quite an easy chapter where they're just going to introduce to you about the meaning and nature of environmental economics. So it's a very easy chapter and also important for scoring. Followed by Chapter 2, we're going to talk about the resource use and management, starting with the resource taxonomy. And when I use that word taxonomy, it's got nothing to do with tax or income or something like that. It's just a naming philosophy or psychology that has been used here. So we will have the renewable, non-renewable energy coming into picture, economic theory of depletable resources, optimal use of the renewable resources, resource scarcity, which has been spoken about, economic growth, limits of the growth model, which is very, very essential that we are talking, tragedy of the common property resources, the resource pricing and other strategies. So probably this entire chapter is designed in such a manner where we are going to talk about a very, very precious resource, none other than our Mother Nature, Mother Earth, the environment, and the factors. Chapter 3 is about that sustainable development. This is quite interesting topic. Why? Because everybody today in the country are talking about sustenance, the word sustainability. People are not talking about competition today. People are not talking about the ability factors, but they're talking about sustainability. Why? Because if you have to continue to exist on this earth, you need to have a unique factor for yourself which will make you to sustain you and your business for the longer years to come. So keeping environment in mind and your business development goals, how are you going to strike a balance and make this planet Earth even more a good place to live in. So that's what exactly we are going to talk in chapter 3, sustainable goals. Very, very interesting chapter. Please don't forget it, because you will definitely land up with questions from this chapter. Now moving on, Unit 2, Chapter 4, Introduction and History. I know that this chapter might sound a little bit boring, might sound a little bit dry. Why? Because we're going to talk about some committees, summits, agendas. I'm going to go back in history in terms of telling you why, how, when, and what. But nevertheless, let's try to understand the need of the hour. We have to go back to history to understand, to make our planet livable, and not to forget, we are now in a position to recreate the history. We have to go back and we have to live in this planet as it was 100 years back. So this chapter is going to talk about some of the historical events that have taken place and that is now put into action. Now, Chapter 5, the government and the SDGs. Now, this is where the sustainable goals are coming in. This is something quite interesting, starting with the UNO, UNESCO, everybody coming together, trying to talk about the government in terms of planning, making the goals more localized, the policies and instruments, what are all the industrial policies to be looked into, followed by the chapter 6, where they're going to talk about the means of financing. Why? Because at the end of the day, yes, you might have a fantastic goal to take it forward, make sustainability the most remarkable event of the year, but if you don't have the money, if you're not being financed enough, you will not be able to achieve it. And not to forget, here you will also have assignments coming in. So there are some practical factors that is going to be distributed by the class teacher to you in the class, and you will be doing some assignments on this particular topic. Now, followed by chapter 7, where we're going to talk about realizing the growth factors, the means to realize how things are going forward, how it is taken up in terms of the sustainable goals. And with that, we will also come to chapter 8, where we're going to talk about implementing of the goal, especially when we talk about the Indian economy. Now, this is going to be very, very important. Why? Because India's framework for sustainable development goals and targets, as you just look into the entire picture, we got a whole lot of plan for it, and we want and we expect that this particular topic is not just for the theory purpose, but it's also the primary agenda for the nation. Followed by Unit 3, Chapter 9, where we're going to talk about the social business processes, the operations, development assistance, and cross-border cooperation. So again, you will have a practical here where we're going to talk about a group discussion, case studies are going to come. So quite interesting factor about the NEP is the involvement that they have brought in terms of student-teacher interaction, by which this entire ideology of talking about the chapters, learning it, making it more practical, and involving students at every level possible. So I would suggest that please don't take the subject lightly. Rather, take this subject as a very important one, which can make you understand about the various process, environment, and situation. Do participate at regular intervals, which will make the subject easy and interesting. Followed by the most interesting topic called as the internals. People always come back and ask me this question: what is going to be there for the internals? So I have it right on the board here for you. On the first internals, it's going to be for 30 marks. So you're going to have 3 internals like that. The 3 internals, the first internal is going to have Unit 1 as your syllabus, Unit 2 for the second internals, and Unit 3 for the third internals. Each internal will be valued for 30 marks, and the maximum mark, that is the final marks, will be awarded on the average of the 3 internals. So let me just remind that word again. It's an average and not best of 3, which means to say that you have to attend all the 3 internals. Your scores will be validated on the basis of that. We will take out the average, and the average will be given to you in the form of your internal marks. Now, the question paper pattern that we have been speaking about, with the recent examination of NEP going on, what we were able to decipher out of it for an open elective course is that this is the pattern that has been followed. So when I look into the part A, you will get 5 questions of 2 marks each. That will be about 10 marks. In the part B, you will have to write 6 questions of 5 marks each, where you will get 30 marks. And in the part C, where you will be able to get 2 questions of 10 marks each. That's about 20. So when you put the total, it's for 60 marks altogether. Now, what is the strategy that you need to follow in order to score well? I would always say that please pay attention more to part B and part C, where you have the major junk. So even if you're writing the part B completely thoroughly well, you have passed the examination, no doubt about it, because you would have scored your 30. And a little bit of stress on part C will help you to score better in the final examination. So again, I repeatedly tell you, continued learning process, dedicated efforts, and please focus in whatever that has been told in the class will help you to score better in the final examination. Followed by the books for reference. As of right now, the books for reference which I can give you from the Indian author perspective is R.N. Bhattacharya on environmental economics. It's been published by the Oxford University Press, New Delhi. So if you have the time and patience, please do get this book. It's very, very important for all of you to learn, and it has got all the contents for the NEP syllabus. So I would kindly request each one of you to please go ahead and get this book. You can order it online or you can get it from the nearby bookshop. But then please do go through this book. It will be highly useful for you in the final exams. With that, I come to the end of this day 0 introduction session. I hope and believe that all the information shared through this session will be of great resource and help to you. In the upcoming sessions, we will be starting up with the course that is going into the main syllabus, trying to understand each and every concept of sustainable development, starting with Unit 1, Chapter 1, which will make this learning even more interesting. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.